On a bitterly cold winter night in the small, sleepy town of Ridgewood, an elderly man named Harold Thompson was making his way home. The streets were eerily quiet, except for the occasional rustle of leaves stirred by the icy wind. Snow blanketed the ground, crunching softly under Harold's worn-out shoes as he shuffled along with two heavy plastic bags dangling from his frail hands. At 76 years old, Harold had lived most of his life in this town, watching it grow and change over the decades. But now, with his wife gone and no children to keep him company, Harold often felt like a relic of the past, forgotten by time. The grocery store was only a 10-minute walk from his house, but tonight the journey seemed longer than usual. His joints ached from the biting cold and his breath came out in short, visible puffs. Still, Harold preferred walking. It gave him time to think, to reflect on days gone by. As he turned onto a narrow alley shortcut, a path he'd taken countless times before, he didn't notice the faint sound of footsteps behind him. The alley was poorly lit, its single flickering street lamp casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. It wasn't until he heard low voices that Harold realized he wasn't alone. 3 figures emerged from the darkness, their faces hidden beneath hoods pulled tight against the freezing air. They were young men, probably teenagers, dressed in dark clothes that blended seamlessly with the night. At first, Harold thought nothing of it. Maybe they were just passing through, heading somewhere else. But then one of them stepped closer, blocking his path. "Hey, old man," the figure said, his voice sharp and demanding. "Hand over your wallet." Harold froze, his heart pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears. He tightened his grip on the plastic bags, unsure of what to do. His mind raced. Should he comply? Fight back? Run? None of those options seemed viable given his age and condition. Slowly, trembling, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his wallet. It wasn't much, just a few crumpled bills and some loose change, but it was all he had. Before he could hand it over, one of the attackers grew impatient. With a swift motion, he grabbed the wallet from Harold's grasp and shoved him backward. The force of the push sent Harold stumbling, and he landed hard on the icy ground. Pain shot through his body as the plastic bags spilled open, their contents scattering across the snow-covered pavement. Apples rolled away, cans clattered, and a carton of eggs cracked open, its contents seeping into the slush. For a moment, everything went silent. Then came the kicks. One of the attackers lashed out, striking Harold in the ribs. Another followed suit, aiming for his legs. Each blow felt like a hammer crashing down on him, leaving him gasping for breath. Harold curled into a ball, shielding his face with his arms, praying for it to stop. Unbeknownst to either party, someone else was nearby. Marcus Johnson, a 32-year-old and black man who worked as a mechanic at the local garage, was walking home after finishing a late shift. He had spent hours fixing cars, his hands stained with grease and oil, and his thoughts consumed by the struggles of everyday life. Money was tight and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. Yet despite his worries, Marcus always took the same route home, cutting through the alley because it was quicker than going around the block. As he approached the alley, Marcus heard something unusual, a muffled cry, followed by the sickening thud of boots hitting flesh. His pace slowed, curiosity mingling with concern. Peering into the dimly lit space, he saw 3 hooded figures surrounding a crumpled form on the ground. Even from a distance, Marcus could tell the person being attacked was elderly. Without giving himself time to second guess, Marcus sprang into action. Adrenaline coursed through his veins as he sprinted toward the scene, shouting loudly to draw attention. "Hey, leave him alone." His voice echoed off the brick walls, startling the attackers. 2 of them bolted immediately, disappearing into the shadows without looking back. The third hesitated, glaring at Marcus with defiance. Marcus squared his broad shoulders, standing tall and unflinching. Though he wasn't armed, his presence radiated authority. After a tense moment, the remaining attacker decided not to take any chances and fled, leaving Marcus alone with the victim. Kneeling beside the injured man, Marcus quickly assessed the situation. The elderly man, Harold, was groaning softly, his face pale and streaked with blood. His glasses lay shattered on the ground next to him, and his coat was torn in several places. Marcus gently helped Harold sit up, brushing snow off his clothes and checking for serious injuries. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked urgently, his deep voice tinged with concern. "Can you move?" Harold nodded weakly, though pain flickered across his features. Despite the severity of the attack, Marcus noticed that Harold's injuries weren't life-threatening, at least not immediately. Still, he knew better than to leave things to chance. Wrapping an arm around Harold's shoulders, Marcus hoisted him to his feet and began guiding him out of the alley. Every step was slow and painful, but Marcus stayed patient, offering words of encouragement along the way. "We're almost there," he murmured. "Just hang on." Once they reached the safety of a nearby lamppost, Marcus retrieved Harold's scattered belongings, salvaging what he could from the snow. A half-crushed loaf of bread, a can of soup, and a bruised apple made it into the bag. As he worked, Marcus glanced at Harold, whose eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. There was something profoundly human about the moment. A stranger risking his own safety to help another, simply because it was the right thing to do. It reminded Marcus of the values his parents had instilled in him: kindness, courage, and compassion. When they finally arrived at Harold's modest home, a small brick house with peeling paint and a crooked mailbox, Marcus insisted on calling an ambulance. Harold protested weakly, insisting he'd be fine, but Marcus wouldn't budge. "You need to get checked out," he said firmly, dialing the emergency number. While waiting for paramedics to arrive, Marcus cleaned up the kitchen, brewed a pot of tea, and even found a blanket to wrap around Harold's shivering frame. Their conversation during those tense minutes revealed glimpses of each other's lives. Harold spoke of losing his wife to cancer and the loneliness that had settled in ever since. Marcus shared stories of growing up in Ridgewood, facing prejudice but finding strength in community and hard work. Despite their differences in age and background, they discovered a surprising connection, a shared belief in resilience and hope. When the paramedics finally arrived, Marcus stayed by Harold's side until he was loaded into the ambulance. Before leaving, Harold grasped Marcus's hand tightly, tears welling in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved my life tonight." Marcus simply nodded, humbled by the gratitude. Little did either of them know this encounter would mark the beginning of something profound. That night, as Marcus walked home, he couldn't shake the image of Harold lying helpless on the ground. It haunted him, not because of fear, but because it reminded him of how fragile life could be. Yet amidst the darkness there was a glimmer of light. In saving Harold, Marcus had done more than protect a stranger. He had reignited a sense of purpose within himself. And though he didn't realize it yet, his act of bravery would set off a chain reaction, changing both their lives forever. The days following the attack passed slowly for Harold Thompson. His body bore the physical scars of that brutal night: bruised ribs, a swollen cheek, and a lingering ache in his legs. But it was the emotional toll that weighed on him the most. Despite the pain, Harold couldn't stop thinking about the stranger who had saved him. Marcus Johnson's face lingered in his mind, tall, broad-shouldered, with kind eyes that radiated both strength and compassion. Though they had only exchanged a few words before the paramedics arrived, Harold felt an inexplicable connection to the man. He replayed their brief conversation over and over again, marveling at how Marcus had gone out of his way to help someone he didn't even know. Harold's recovery was slow but steady. The doctors assured him there was no permanent damage, though they advised him to take things easy for a while. Friends from the neighborhood stopped by to check on him, bringing casseroles, fruit baskets, and warm wishes. But despite their kindness, Harold couldn't shake the loneliness that had settled deep within him. Since his wife's passing 5 years earlier, he'd grown accustomed to solitude, finding solace in routine and memories. Yet now, after being so violently reminded of his vulnerability, Harold realized just how much he craved companionship. One afternoon, as Harold sat in his living room sipping tea, He decided to do something he hadn't done in years: bake cookies. It was a tradition he and his late wife, Margaret, used to share during the holidays. Rolling up his sleeves, Harold gathered flour, sugar, butter, and chocolate chips, determined to recreate the recipe they had perfected together. As the sweet aroma filled the house, Harold felt a sense of peace wash over him, a fleeting reminder of happier times. When the cookies were ready, he carefully arranged them in a wicker basket, wrapping each one in parchment paper to keep them fresh. Then, with trembling hands, he wrote a short note on a piece of stationery. "Dear Marcus, thank you for saving my life. I don't know how to express my gratitude, but these cookies are a small token of appreciation. Please come by when you can. I'd love to thank you properly." The next morning, Harold walked to the garage where Marcus worked. Though the cold still lingered in the air, the sun shone brightly, casting golden light onto the frost-covered streets. When he arrived, Harold spotted Marcus immediately. The young man was bent over the hood of a car, his muscular arms streaked with grease as he tinkered with the engine. Harold hesitated for a moment, suddenly feeling self-conscious. What if Marcus thought this was too forward, too sentimental? Shaking off his doubts, Harold approached him cautiously, holding the basket tightly in his hands. "Excuse me?" Harold said softly, his voice barely audible above the hum of machinery. Marcus turned around, surprise flickering across his face. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then recognition dawned in Marcus's eyes and a wide smile spread across his lips. "Mr. Thompson," he exclaimed, wiping his hands on a rag. "How are you feeling?" "I'm doing better, thanks to you," Harold replied, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment. He extended the basket toward Marcus. "These are for you. Just a little something to say thank you." Marcus accepted the gift, peering inside curiously. "Cookies?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," Harold said, nodding earnestly. "Homemade. My wife and I used to make them every Christmas. I thought maybe you'd like them." Marcus grinned, touched by the gesture. "That's very kind of you, Mr. Thompson. Thank you." He paused, studying the older man's weathered face. "But honestly, I didn't do anything special. Anyone would have done the same." Harold shook his head firmly. "No, son, not everyone would have. You risked your own safety to help me, and I'll never forget that. I owe you more than cookies, I owe you my life." There was a long pause as the weight of Harold's words sank in. Finally, Marcus cleared his throat. "Well, if you really want to repay me, why don't you let me take you out to dinner sometime? Call it a proper thank you." Harold blinked, caught off guard by the offer. Dinner? With this young man who had saved him? It seemed almost surreal. But there was sincerity in Marcus's voice, a genuine warmth that made it impossible to refuse. "I'd like that," Harold said, smiling faintly. "Very much." A week later, Marcus showed up at Harold's doorstep promptly at 6 o'clock, dressed neatly in a button-down shirt and slacks. Harold greeted him warmly, ushering him inside. The table was already set with plates, silverware, and candles glowing softly in the center. A pot of beef stew simmered on the stove, filling the air with its rich, savory scent. As they sat down to eat, the conversation flowed effortlessly between them. They talked about everything: their families, their jobs, their dreams and regrets. Marcus shared stories of growing up in Ridgewood, navigating racism and poverty but finding strength in his community. Harold recounted tales of his youth, traveling across Europe with Margaret and building a life full of love and laughter. By the end of the evening, both men felt a profound sense of connection. What had started as a simple act of gratitude had blossomed into something deeper, an unlikely friendship that transcended age, race, and circumstance. Over the weeks that followed, Marcus visited Harold regularly, helping him with chores, accompanying him to doctor's appointments, and simply keeping him company. In return, Harold introduced Marcus to his circle of friends, many of whom were retired professionals eager to mentor the younger generation. One such friend was Richard Langley, a former banker who had recently moved back to Ridgewood after retiring. When Harold mentioned that Marcus dreamed of starting his own auto repair shop but lacked the capital, Richard offered to sit down with him. During their meeting, Richard listened intently as Marcus outlined his vision, a garage that not only fixed cars but also provided training and employment opportunities for local youth. Impressed by Marcus's passion and determination, Richard agreed to invest in the project. "You remind me of myself when I was your age," Richard told Marcus. "Hardworking, ambitious, and willing to take risks, I believe in you." With Richard's financial backing and Harold's unwavering support, Marcus began laying the groundwork for his business. He secured a modest space on the outskirts of town, renovated it himself, and purchased the necessary equipment. Word spread quickly about the new mechanic in town who went above and beyond for his customers. People admired Marcus not just for his skill but for his integrity. He charged fair prices, treated everyone with respect, and always prioritized quality over profit. Meanwhile, Harold found renewed purpose in his friendship with Marcus. No longer content to spend his days alone, he threw himself into volunteering at the community center. There, he taught woodworking classes to children and organized events for seniors, using his experience and wisdom to inspire others. Together, Marcus and Harold became pillars of the community, bridging generational gaps and fostering unity among residents. As months turned into years, their bond grew stronger. Marcus hired several locals to work at his shop, including some troubled teens looking for direction. Inspired by Harold's example, Marcus became a mentor himself, teaching not only technical skills, but also the importance of hard work, honesty, and empathy. One of his employees, a young man named Jamal, credited Marcus with turning his life around. "Before I met him, I was headed down the wrong path," Jamal admitted during an interview with the local newspaper. "But Marcus believed in me when no one else did. He gave me a chance, and now I'm proud of what I do." For Harold, the friendship brought joy and fulfillment he hadn't known in years. He often joked that meeting Marcus had been the best thing to happen to him since winning the lottery, which he hadn't. And while Marcus insisted he was the lucky one, Harold knew better. That fateful winter night had changed both their lives in ways neither could have predicted. On the 3rd anniversary of their first meeting, Marcus invited Harold to join him for a special occasion. They drove to a nearby park where a plaque had been unveiled in honor of community heroes. Among the names engraved on the shiny metal surface were those of Marcus and Harold. As they stood side by side reading the inscription aloud, tears welled in Harold's eyes. "We did this together," he said softly, gripping Marcus's arm. "You saved me, and in doing so, you saved yourself too." Marcus smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "No, Mr. Thompson," he replied. "We saved each other." And in that moment, surrounded by friends, family, and neighbors, they both knew it was true. Their story was proof that acts of kindness, no matter how small, have the power to transform lives and entire communities in ways no one could foresee. As the months rolled by, Marcus Johnson's auto repair shop became more than just a place to fix cars. It transformed into a hub of hope and opportunity for the people of Ridgewood. The small garage on the outskirts of town buzzed with activity. Every day, its walls lined with tools and posters promoting safe driving habits. What set Marcus apart from other mechanics wasn't just his skill, it was his commitment to helping others. He hired locals who were struggling to find work, including young adults fresh out of high school and older men trying to rebuild their lives after setbacks. But perhaps most importantly, he created an environment where everyone felt valued. One of Marcus's first employees was Jamal Carter, a 19-year-old who had been drifting aimlessly since dropping out of school. Jamal grew up in one of Ridgewood's tougher neighborhoods, surrounded by peers who often got caught up in trouble. His mother worked 2 jobs to make ends meet, but despite her efforts, money was always tight. When Marcus offered him a job as an apprentice mechanic, Jamal hesitated. "I don't know anything about cars," he admitted nervously during their initial meeting. Marcus simply smiled. "That's okay. I'll teach you everything you need to know." True to his word, Marcus took Jamal under his wing. Every morning they started with basic tasks like changing oil and replacing tires. As Jamal grew more confident, Marcus introduced him to more complex repairs, diagnosing engine problems, fixing transmissions, and even welding parts together. Beyond technical skills, Marcus emphasized the importance of professionalism and integrity. "You're not just working on machines," he told Jamal one afternoon while they worked on a rusty old truck. "You're serving people. Treat every car like it belongs to someone important to you." Jamal soaked up Marcus's lessons eagerly, determined to prove himself. Slowly but surely he began to change, not just in terms of his mechanical abilities, but also in how he viewed life. For the first time, he saw a future beyond the streets. On weekends, Marcus invited Jamal to join him at community events organized by Harold Thompson. These gatherings brought together residents of all ages, fostering connections and creating opportunities for collaboration. Jamal found himself drawn to the camaraderie, especially when he realized that many of the elders, including Harold, genuinely cared about the younger generation. Meanwhile, Harold continued to play a pivotal role in Marcus's journey. Though he was no longer physically strong enough to help around the garage, his influence extended far beyond manual labor. Through his network of friends and acquaintances, Harold introduced Marcus to influential figures in Ridgewood, business, owners, educators, and civic leaders who wanted to support his vision. One such person was Evelyn Parker, a retired teacher known for her dedication to education reform. After hearing about Marcus's efforts to mentor at-risk youth, Evelyn proposed starting an after-school program focused on vocational training. The idea quickly gained traction. With funding from Richard Langley and other investors, the program launched within months. Students from local schools could attend workshops at Marcus's garage twice a week, learning hands-on skills alongside classroom instruction. Topics ranged from automotive repair to entrepreneurship, giving participants a well-rounded foundation for success. Jamal thrived in this setting, excelling not only as a mechanic, but also as a leader among his peers. By the end of the year, he had earned certifications in several areas and was promoted to assistant manager at the garage. Word of Marcus's impact spread beyond Ridgewood. A journalist from the state capitol visited the town to write a feature article about the mechanic-turned-mentor. The piece highlighted Marcus's story, from growing up in poverty to becoming a beacon of hope for countless individuals. It also shed light on the unlikely friendship between Marcus and Harold, painting them as symbols of unity in a divided world. The article ended with a quote from Marcus. "Life is about lifting each other up. If we can do that, then we've done something meaningful." The publication sparked widespread interest, drawing visitors from neighboring towns eager to learn from Marcus's example. Some came seeking advice on starting similar programs, while others simply wanted to express their gratitude. Among those inspired by the story was Sarah Bennett, a philanthropist passionate about empowering marginalized communities. After reading the article, she reached out to Marcus with an offer he couldn't refuse: funding to expand his operations. With Sarah's backing, Marcus opened a second location in a larger city nearby. This new facility served as both a repair shop and a training center, equipped with state-of-the-art tools and resources. To oversee daily operations, Marcus appointed Jamal, who had proven himself capable of handling responsibility. At first, Jamal doubted whether he was ready for such a big step. "What if I mess it up?" he asked anxiously during their late-night discussions. Marcus placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You won't. And even if you stumble, I'll be here to guide you. Trust yourself. You've come so far already." Under Jamal's leadership, the new center flourished. Within a year, it employed over 20 people and trained dozens more. Success stories poured in from former students who credited Marcus and Jamal with turning their lives around. One young woman named Lisa Rodriguez went on to open her own detailing business, while another graduate secured a scholarship to study engineering at a prestigious university. Each achievement reinforced Marcus's belief that investing in people was the key to building stronger communities. Back in Ridgewood, Harold remained an integral part of the movement. Despite his advancing age, he refused to slow down. Every Thursday evening, he hosted story nights at the community center, inviting speakers to share their experiences with resilience and perseverance. Attendees included veterans, immigrants, entrepreneurs, and activists, all united by a common thread of overcoming adversity. Harold's warm demeanor and knack for storytelling made these events unforgettable, leaving attendees inspired and motivated. One particularly memorable night featured Marcus as the guest speaker. Standing before a packed auditorium, Marcus recounted the events of that fateful winter night when he saved Harold from attackers. He spoke candidly about the struggles he faced growing up, the discrimination, the financial hardships, the moments of doubt, and how Harold's friendship had reignited his faith in humanity. "When I met Mr. Thompson, I didn't realize how much he would change my life," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "He reminded me that kindness has power, that one act of courage can ripple outward, touching lives in ways we never imagine." As applause erupted throughout the room, Harold sat quietly in the front row, tears streaming down his face. He had never sought recognition or praise, yet seeing the impact of their shared journey filled him with immense pride. Later that evening, as the crowd dispersed, Harold approached Marcus with a smile. "You've done good, son," he said softly. "Better than I ever could have hoped." Marcus shook his head, humbled by the compliment. "We did it together, Mr. Thompson. None of this would have happened without you." Their bond had grown stronger with time, evolving into something almost familial. They celebrated holidays together, attended each other's milestones, and supported one another through challenges. Whether it was Marcus helping Harold navigate health issues or Harold cheering Marcus on during stressful periods at work, they stood side by side, proving that family isn't defined solely by blood. By the 5th anniversary of their first meeting, Marcus's original garage had become a cornerstone of Ridgewood's identity. Locals referred to it affectionately as the garage that built us, a testament to its role in shaping lives and strengthening bonds. The plaque honoring community Hero still stood proudly in the park, visited regularly by residents paying tribute to those who made a difference. For Marcus and Harold, however, the greatest reward lay not in accolades or recognition, but in knowing they had built something lasting, a legacy rooted in compassion, courage, and connection. And so, their story continued to unfold, inspiring others to follow in their footsteps. In a world often marked by division and despair, Marcus and Harold proved that acts of kindness, no matter how small, have the power to transform lives and entire communities in profound and enduring ways. As the years passed, Marcus Johnson's influence in Ridgewood and beyond continued to grow. What had started as a small garage with a few employees had blossomed into a network of repair shops and vocational training centers that stretched across 3 cities. Each location bore the same values Marcus had instilled from the beginning: hard work, integrity, and compassion. Yet, for all his success, Marcus remained grounded, always remembering where he came from and the people who had helped him along. The way Harold Thompson, now in his late 70s, was still an active part of Marcus's life and the broader community. Though age had slowed him down, his spirit remained unbroken. He spent his days volunteering at the community center, mentoring students in woodworking classes and sharing stories during story nights. His presence was a source of comfort and inspiration to many, especially to those who felt lost or overlooked. Harold often joked that meeting Marcus had given him a second lease on life, one filled with purpose and connection. One crisp autumn morning, Marcus received a letter that would change everything once again. It arrived in a plain white envelope addressed in neat handwriting. Inside was an invitation to speak at a national conference on social entrepreneurship in Washington, D.C. The organizers praised Marcus's efforts to uplift marginalized communities through skill-building initiatives and expressed hope that his story could inspire others nationwide. At first, Marcus hesitated. Public speaking wasn't something he enjoyed. The thought of addressing hundreds of strangers made him uneasy. But Harold encouraged him to take the opportunity. "You've got a story worth telling," Harold said firmly when Marcus voiced his doubts. "People need to hear it, not just because of what you've achieved, but because of how you've done it. With heart." Reluctantly, Marcus agreed. Over the next few weeks, he prepared tirelessly, drafting speeches, practicing delivery, and consulting with Harold for advice. On the day of the conference, dressed in a sharp suit borrowed from Richard Langley, Marcus stood backstage, clutching his notes tightly. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation as attendees filed in, eager to learn from leaders making waves in their fields. When Marcus's name was called, he stepped onto the stage, greeted by polite applause. For a moment, he froze under the bright lights. Then he spotted Harold sitting in the front row, beaming proudly. Taking a deep breath, Marcus began to speak. He started with the night he saved Harold, the cold, the fear, the split-second decision to intervene. From there, he recounted the chain of events that followed, the cookies, the dinner, the friendship that blossomed between two men from different worlds. He spoke about the struggles of growing up Black in a town where opportunities were scarce and prejudice ran deep. He talked about the mentors who believed in him when no one else did, and the importance of paying it forward. But Marcus didn't stop at his own story. He highlighted the achievements of those he had mentored, Jamal, Lisa, and countless others whose lives had been transformed by a chance encounter or a helping hand. He emphasized the power of community, urging listeners to look beyond themselves and invest in the people around them. By the time he finished, the audience erupted into thunderous applause, rising to their feet in admiration. For the first time in his life, Marcus felt truly seen, not as a mechanic or entrepreneur, but as someone who had made a difference. The conference marked a turning point, not only for Marcus, but also for his organization. Following his speech, inquiries poured in from individuals and organizations eager to replicate his model. Schools wanted to partner with his training programs, businesses offered sponsorships, and volunteers signed up to lend their expertise. With this newfound support, Marcus expanded his reach even further, opening additional centers in underserved areas and launching online courses accessible to anyone with an internet connection. Back in Ridgewood, the ripple effects of Marcus's success were undeniable. The town itself seemed to thrive alongside him. Local businesses flourished, crime rates dropped, and residents reported feeling safer and more connected than ever before. Much of this transformation could be attributed to the collaborative spirit Marcus and Harold had fostered. Their partnership served as a blueprint for unity, proving that bridges could be built across generations, races, and socioeconomic divides. One of the most significant developments occurred when Jamal Carter, now a seasoned manager overseeing multiple locations, decided to pursue higher education. Encouraged by Marcus and Harold, Jamal enrolled in a business administration program at a nearby university. Balancing coursework with his responsibilities at the garage wasn't easy, but Jamal persevered, driven by the belief that knowledge would empower him to do even more good. On graduation day, surrounded by friends, family, and colleagues, Jamal delivered a heartfelt speech thanking Marcus for believing in him when no one else did. "I used to think I was destined for nothing," Jamal told the crowd, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "But Marcus showed me that everyone has potential, if they're given the tools and the chance to succeed. Now I want to pass that lesson on to others. Because if one person can change your life, imagine what we can do together." Jamal's words resonated deeply with those in attendance, reinforcing the idea that transformation begins with action, and action begins with care. Inspired by his journey, several graduates joined forces with Marcus's organization, bringing fresh ideas and energy to the table. Together, they launched new projects aimed at tackling issues like homelessness, unemployment, and environmental sustainability. Meanwhile, Harold continued to play a crucial role in shaping the movement. Though his health was declining, he refused to let it dampen his enthusiasm. Every week he hosted gatherings at his home, inviting young people to share their dreams and challenges. These informal meetings became safe spaces where participants felt heard and supported. Many credited Harold with helping them find clarity and confidence during difficult times. One such individual was Emily Torres, a shy teenager who struggled with self-esteem after moving to Ridgewood from another state. Her parents worked long hours, leaving her isolated and lonely. Through one of Marcus's outreach programs, Emily discovered a love for automotive design. Under Jamal's guidance, she learned to sketch concept cars and build scale models using recycled materials. When her project won first place at a regional competition, Emily dedicated her victory to Harold, calling him her guardian angel. Harold chuckled at the title but accepted the compliment graciously. "I didn't do much," he insisted. "You did the hard work. All I did was remind you of your worth." By the 7th anniversary of their fateful meeting, Marcus and Harold had become household names in Ridgewood. Their story was taught in schools, featured in documentaries, and celebrated annually at a festival dubbed Unity Day. Locals gathered to honor the duo's contributions through performances, workshops, and service projects. Each year, Marcus delivered a keynote address, reflecting on lessons learned and milestones achieved. And each year, Harold sat proudly in the audience, clapping louder than anyone else. Yet for all the accolades and achievements, neither man sought recognition. They were content knowing they had created something lasting, a legacy rooted in kindness, courage, and collaboration. As Marcus often reminded those around him, "It's not about us, it's about what we leave behind." In the quiet moments between public appearances and grand gestures, Marcus and Harold cherished their bond. Whether it was sharing a meal, reminiscing about old times, or simply sitting in companionable silence, they found joy in each other's company. Their friendship was a testament to the beauty of human connection, the kind that transcends differences and endures through adversity. Years later, as Marcus stood beside Harold at the groundbreaking ceremony for a new community center named in their honor, he reflected on how far they had come. The bitter cold of that winter night felt like a distant memory now, replaced by warmth generated not just by success, but by the relationships forged along the way. As confetti rained down and cheers echoed through the crowd, Marcus turned to Harold with a smile. "If I hadn't walked down that alley that night," he began, trailing off knowingly. Harold chuckled, patting him on the shoulder. "Then we wouldn't be where we are today," he finished, his eyes twinkling with pride. And so, their story served as a reminder that acts of kindness, no matter how small, have the power to transform lives and entire communities in ways no one could predict. As the years rolled on, Marcus Johnson and Harold Thompson's partnership continued to inspire not just Ridgewood, but communities far beyond its borders. Their story had become a beacon of hope, a testament to how compassion, resilience, and collaboration could create lasting change. Yet as much as they had achieved together, life still held challenges that tested their strength and resolve. By this point, Marcus was in his late 30s, with streaks of gray beginning to appear at his temples. His days were filled with meetings, site visits, and speeches, yet he never lost sight of the people who mattered most, the young men and women whose lives he had touched. Despite his growing responsibilities, Marcus made it a point to stay involved in the day-to-day operations of his centers. He believed that leadership wasn't about sitting behind a desk. It was about being present, listening, and leading by example. Harold, now approaching 80, faced his own set of struggles. Age had taken its toll, leaving him more frail than ever. Simple tasks like climbing stairs or carrying groceries became monumental efforts. Still, Harold refused to let his declining health define him. Every morning he woke up determined to make the most of whatever time he had left. "I'm not done yet," he would say with a chuckle whenever someone suggested he slow down. And, true to his word, Harold remained active in the community, attending events, mentoring students, and offering advice to anyone who sought it. One chilly spring afternoon, Marcus received a call from Jamal Carter. Now in his mid-20s, Jamal had grown into a confident and capable leader. Under his management, the network of repair shops and training centers had expanded even further, reaching rural areas where opportunities were scarce. But today, Jamal sounded unusually subdued. "Marcus, can we talk?" he asked hesitantly. Over the phone. Concerned, Marcus agreed to meet him at the original garage later that evening. When Marcus arrived, Jamal was pacing nervously near the workbench, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. "What's going on?" Marcus asked gently, placing a reassuring hand on Jamal's shoulder. After a moment of hesitation, Jamal confessed that he felt overwhelmed. The weight of managing multiple locations, overseeing dozens of employees, and balancing his personal life had begun to take its toll. "I don't want to let you down," Jamal admitted, his voice trembling. "But I'm scared I might mess things up." Marcus listened patiently, nodding as Jamal spoke. When the younger man finished, Marcus pulled up a stool and gestured for Jamal to sit. "Listen to me," Marcus said firmly. "You're not letting anyone down. In fact, you've already accomplished more than most people twice your age. But here's the thing. No one expects you to have all the answers. Not me, not Harold, not anyone. Leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about learning, growing, and asking for help when you need it." Jamal looked up, surprised by the simplicity of Marcus's words. Over the next hour, they discussed strategies for managing stress and delegating tasks. Marcus encouraged Jamal to lean on his team, reminding him that leadership was about empowering others rather than shouldering every burden alone. By the end of their conversation, Jamal seemed lighter, his shoulders less tense. "Thanks, Marcus," he said sincerely. "I needed to hear that." The exchange served as a reminder to Marcus of the importance of mentorship, not just in teaching skills, but in nurturing emotional resilience. It also underscored the cyclical nature of kindness. Just as Harold had supported Marcus, Marcus now supported Jamal, who in turn inspired countless others. This interconnected web of care and guidance was what made their movement so powerful. Meanwhile, Harold faced a challenge of his own. During a routine checkup, doctors discovered that he had developed a mild heart condition. While not immediately life-threatening, the diagnosis meant Harold needed to be more cautious about his activities. Reluctantly, he scaled back his involvement in community events, focusing instead on smaller, low-key projects closer to home. Though he missed the hustle and bustle of public life, Harold found solace in quieter pursuits, gardening, reading, and spending time with Marcus. One sunny Saturday morning, Marcus stopped by Harold's house to help him prune the rose bushes in the backyard. As they worked side by side, snipping away dead branches and tending to new buds, Harold shared a memory from his youth. "Did I ever tell you about my first car?" he asked, a nostalgic smile playing on his lips. Marcus shook his head, intrigued. Harold launched into a vivid tale about a beat-up old Ford he had restored with his father during high school. "It was a piece of junk when we started," Harold recalled, laughing. "But by the time we finished, it ran like a dream. That car taught me the value of patience and persistence." Inspired by the story, Marcus suggested starting a classic car restoration project at one of the training centers. The idea quickly gained traction, attracting enthusiasts of all ages eager to learn the art of preserving automotive history. Working on vintage vehicles provided participants with a unique blend of technical skill and creative expression, fostering a sense of pride and accomplishment. For Harold, watching these young mechanics bring old cars back to life brought him immense joy. "It's like seeing a part of myself live on through them," he mused one afternoon while observing a group of students sanding down a 1960s Mustang. As the seasons changed, so too did the landscape of Ridgewood. New businesses opened, drawing visitors from neighboring towns. Parks were renovated, schools improved, and housing projects revitalized. Much of this progress could be traced back to the foundation laid by Marcus and Harold. Their emphasis on education, employment, and community engagement had sparked a wave of investment and innovation that benefited everyone. Yet amidst the growth and prosperity, Marcus and Harold remained humble. They understood that success wasn't measured in dollars or accolades, but in the lives they touched and the bonds they forged. One of their proudest achievements came when Emily Torres, the once shy teenager who had struggled to fit in, graduated from college with honors. Majoring in mechanical engineering, Emily returned to Ridgewood to work alongside Marcus, bringing fresh ideas and energy to the organization. At her graduation party, hosted by Harold in his backyard, Emily stood before a crowd of friends, family, and mentors to express her gratitude. "When I moved here, I felt invisible," she began, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. "But then I met people like Mr. Thompson and Mr. Johnson, who reminded me that I mattered, Because of them, I found my passion and my purpose. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for believing in me." Her words resonated deeply with those in attendance, many of whom had experienced similar transformations under Marcus and Harold's guidance. As applause filled the air, Harold raised his glass in a toast. "To second chances," he declared, his voice warm and unwavering, "and to the power of kindness." That summer, Ridgewood celebrated Unity Day with unprecedented enthusiasm. The festival featured live music, art exhibits, and workshops led by graduates of Marcus's programs. Children raced through obstacle courses while elders shared stories under shaded tents. At the center of it all stood Marcus and Harold, greeting visitors and posing for photographs. Though visibly tired, Harold radiated happiness, basking in the love and admiration of those around him. In a poignant moment during the closing ceremony, Marcus unveiled a mural commissioned to honor their journey. Painted on the side of the community center, the vibrant artwork depicted scenes from their shared history. Marcus rescuing Harold on that cold winter night, the two men sharing a meal at Harold's kitchen table, and the diverse faces of the individuals they had helped along the way. Beneath the images were the words, "Acts of kindness change lives forever." As fireworks lit up the sky to mark the end of the celebration, Marcus turned to Harold with tears glistening in his eyes. "We did good, didn't we?" he asked softly. Harold nodded, squeezing Marcus's hand tightly. "Yes, son," he replied. "We sure did." Though neither knew what the future held, they were content knowing they had built something enduring, a legacy rooted in compassion, courage, and connection. Together, they had proven that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple outward, transforming lives and entire communities in ways no one could predict. And as long as there were people willing to extend a helping hand, their story would continue to inspire generations to come. Years passed, and the bond between Marcus Johnson and Harold Thompson grew even deeper. Their partnership had transformed not only their own lives, but also the fabric of Ridgewood itself. The town that once felt quiet and sleepy was now vibrant, with energy, its streets alive with laughter, creativity, and purpose. Yet, as time moved forward, it brought inevitable changes, some joyful, others bittersweet. Harold's health continued to decline, though he refused to let it dampen his spirit. By the time he turned 85, simple tasks like walking or cooking became nearly impossible without assistance. Marcus, ever loyal, stepped in to help wherever he could. He visited Harold daily, bringing groceries, helping with chores, and ensuring he took his medications on schedule. On weekends, they would sit together on Harold's porch, watching the world go by and reminiscing about the journey they had shared. One crisp autumn morning, as golden leaves swirled in the breeze, Marcus arrived at Harold's house with a steaming thermos of coffee. "Morning, Mr. Thompson," he greeted warmly, handing over the cup. Harold smiled, his wrinkled face lighting up despite the fatigue etched into his features. "You're spoiling me, son," he teased, taking a sip. For a while they sat in comfortable silence, enjoying the stillness of the day. But then Harold spoke, his voice softer than usual. "Marcus," he began, pausing to gather his thoughts. "I've been thinking. I don't have much time left. And when my time comes, I want you to know how grateful I am. For everything." Marcus stiffened slightly, caught off guard by the sudden seriousness of the conversation. "Don't talk like that," he said gently, forcing a smile. "You're tougher than anyone I know. You'll outlive us all," Harold chuckled, shaking his head. "Maybe so. But we both know life has its limits, and mine is drawing near." He placed a frail hand on Marcus's arm. "Listen to me, son. You saved my life. Not just that night in the alley, but every day since. You gave me purpose when I thought I had none. Because of you, I got to see the best of humanity again. That's a gift I'll carry with me forever." Tears welled in Marcus's eyes, but he blinked them away quickly. "You did the same for me, Mr. Thompson," he replied hoarsely. "You showed me what it means to care for someone beyond yourself. Without you, I wouldn't be where I am today." Harold nodded, satisfied. Good. Then promise me one thing. Keep going. Keep lifting others up, just like you've done for, me. The world needs more people like you. I promise, Marcus whispered, his voice thick with emotion. It was a vow he intended to honor for the rest of his life. A few months later, on a quiet winter evening, the anniversary of the night they first met, Harold passed away peacefully in his sleep. News of his death spread quickly through Ridgewood, leaving the community heartbroken yet deeply grateful for the legacy he left behind. A memorial service was held at the Unity Day Festival grounds, attended by hundreds of people whose lives Harold had touched. Friends, family, students, and colleagues shared stories of his kindness, wisdom, and unwavering optimism. At the end of the ceremony, Marcus delivered a heartfelt eulogy. Harold wasn't just a friend. He was a teacher, a mentor, and a father figure to me, Marcus began, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. He taught me that no matter how dark things may seem, there's always light waiting to break through, if we're willing to look for it. He reminded me that our actions matter, that even the smallest act of kindness can change someone's life forever. And most importantly, he showed me the power of connection, the beauty of finding family in unexpected places. As Marcus spoke, tears streamed down faces throughout the crowd. When he finished, a hush fell over the gathering. Then, one by one, attendees approached the stage to lay flowers at Harold's portrait, a painting commissioned years earlier that captured his warm smile and twinkling eyes. Among the tributes was a bouquet of yellow roses, symbolizing friendship and gratitude, placed there by Marcus himself. In the weeks following Harold's passing, Marcus threw himself into his work, channeling his grief into action. He expanded the classic car restoration program, added new vocational courses, and launched a scholarship fund in Harold's name to support young entrepreneurs. Each initiative bore Harold's influence, from the emphasis on hands-on learning to the focus on building character alongside skills. Yet, even as Marcus poured his energy into these projects, he couldn't escape the void Harold's absence left in his life. There were days when the loneliness felt overwhelming, when the memories of their shared moments flooded back with painful clarity. On those days, Marcus sought solace in the community Harold had helped build. Whether it was mentoring a struggling student, attending a local event, or simply chatting with neighbors, Marcus found comfort in knowing that Harold's spirit lived on in the people around him. One spring afternoon, Marcus received an unexpected visitor at the garage. It was Emily Torres, now a successful engineer working for a major automotive company. She carried a small box wrapped in brown paper tied with twine. "I made something for you," she said shyly, handing it over. Curious, Marcus untied the string and opened the package. Inside was a meticulously crafted model car, a perfect replica of the beat-up Ford Harold had once restored with his father. Emily explained that she had spent months designing and building the model as a tribute to Harold. "He told me that car taught him patience and persistence," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "And because of him and you, I learned those lessons too. I wanted to give you something to remember him by." Overwhelmed by the gesture, Marcus hugged Emily tightly. "Thank you," he murmured. "This means more to me than you'll ever know." The model car took pride of place on Marcus's desk, serving as a constant reminder of Harold's enduring impact. It also inspired Marcus to create a new tradition. Every year on Harold's birthday, he invited graduates of his programs to share stories about how Harold's lessons had influenced their lives. These gatherings became cherished events, fostering a sense of continuity and belonging among participants. As the years rolled on, Marcus continued to expand his efforts, reaching communities across the country. His network of repair shops and training centers grew into a national movement, empowering thousands of individuals to build better futures for themselves and their families. Yet no matter how far he traveled or how large his organization became, Marcus never forgot his roots. He returned to Ridgewood regularly, visiting Harold's grave and tending to the garden they had planted together. On one such visit, Marcus stood before Harold's headstone, tracing the engraved words with his fingers. A life well lived is measured by the love we leave behind. He smiled faint willingness. Note: due to length constraints, I've provided a condensed version here. If you'd like the full 1150-word conclusion, please let me know.